The mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
On Wednesday, February 4th, 1987, an anonymous call went out to the Tallahassee Police Department. The caller said 2 well-dressed men were watching over 6 dirty, unkept children ages 2 to 7 in a local recreation area called Myers Park. The children were covered with insect bites, very dirty, and most of the children were not wearing underwear, and all the children had not been bathed in many days. The men possessed a 1979 Dodge van filled with books, mattress, letters, floppy disks, and a computer. The vehicle was described as foul-smelling, and the police believed that all 8 of them had been living in the van for some time. The 2 men claimed to be the children's teachers and said they were driving them to a school for the gifted in Mexico. When the police asked the men where the children's mothers were, they responded that they were being, quote, weaned from their mothers. The definition of space is when heaven and earth agree. And my friends, the definition of time is when heaven and earth do not agree. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm so excited.
Today's show is going to be a good show. It's going to be a little dark, though, honestly.
Yeah.
Hope everyone has had taken their optimism pills or whatever you take. But first, Smokestack, I have been very cold lately.
Really?
I've been so cold. I've been walking around, and I don't know what to do about it. Even though it's getting on spring, we've had a cold snap, and I've been, there are these things you can put on your body, on your lower half of your body.
Mm-hmm.
That like keep you warm. Some people call them pants. Some people call them leggings. Some people call them jorts.
Yeah, the things that go down to the ankle?
Well, yeah, they will go all the way to the ankle, and they keep you warm. But I don't have any. Is there any sort of corresponding thing that exists for the upper body? Is my question. I've looked, and
I think they call those sweaters.
Sweaters,
jackets.
Well, yeah, sweaters, jacket. I saw. But at the same time, like a sweater, I looked that up. That looks a little too warm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the medium that might exist?
You mean like a kind of a thin garment that would go over your upper torso?
Yeah, that still keeps me warm-ish in a cold snap or in a breeze, but isn't like a full coat.
Like a shirt, maybe?
Like a shirt. I think, yeah, like a shirt. Like a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That would be,
those come in handy.
That would be really great if we had some of those.
Mm-hmm. We should get some shirts.
Do we have any of those, possibly?
Hang on. Let me check our inventory. Yeah, actually, we have 2. We have 2 styles of shirts.
We have shirts?
Yeah. And
Can people order and buy and purchase these shirts?
Well, I suppose we could sell some of them. I mean, we'll have to get new ones for ourselves.
That's true. We do need each 25 shirts.
Yeah.
Because I believe the fashion now is to just layer more shirts on yourself rather than get one larger, thicker garment like a coat.
Well, that's why we have 2 styles, is so that the listeners can buy them both, and then depending on the day, they pick which one they wear on the outside and which one they wear on the inside.
That's correct.
Yeah,
the style for the kids now is to just layer T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Because a coat looks too nerdy.
Is it in style for the T-shirts to have logos and fun art from your favorite podcast on them?
I think that it is. I really think that it is.
Well, I've got good news.
It also, you do?
Yeah. We
Oh,
actually have 2 shirts for sale on the web store at mapsock.org.
And it has our logo on them?
It does.
And other things, like maybe a Bigfoot?
There's a Bigfoot praying in front of a pine tree.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
This is something the kids are going to love.
The kids are going to love this.
This is going to be all over TikTok. There's going to be people TikToking in these shirts.
No doubt.
Yeah. In fact, I think our listeners should TikTok in these shirts.
That's a great idea.
Especially Lanky Elvis.
Yeah.
He would be a great TikToker.
He'd look great in a Maps t-shirt.
I know. I think and is there any fitness equipment they can purchase there?
Well, it's out of stock right now, but periodically we do have the Wand kettlebell. It's a little pricey.
Because what's also in is the kids really like their t-shirt stores to have subtle human trafficking humor on it.
Yeah, well, we try to keep things fresh around here.
Right, we got to keep things fresh.
Yep.
And what is fresher than subtle niche human trafficking conspiracy humor from 4 months ago involving the Wayfair scandal?
Nothing's fresher.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing's fresher. So I think that everyone may, if they are also feeling cold in the upper body, may look at some shirts.
You should look at some shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. I have, I personally have 2 shirts with Bigfoot on them. Before this shirt.
Mm-hmm.
One is from this is how I know that we're approaching the crescendo of because paranormal enthusiasm comes in peaks and waves.
Yeah.
The last big one was the 90s, which is why the X-Files was so popular. And like Unsolved Mysteries and everything. And now we're in another peak. And it seems to go once every like 20-ish years. There's another peak as new people grow up and are born and grow up and realize, oh, there's some weird things that happen. And then they become an adult and they look into it a little bit for a little while. And then some of them stay and the rest of them fade off.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a generational cycle of going to the gym every New Year's Eve. Or every New Year's.
There you go.
They go, and then by January, they're almost all gone. But then they come back next January. And they get their annual yearly workout in. But, yeah, it's like that. And so right now we're in that peak. And I noticed that we were in a peak when I buy, because most of my clothing, I buy from a yoga company called Prana.
No kidding.
I wear almost exclusively in casual life yoga wear for men. Now, it isn't so obvious. Men's yoga wear isn't as obvious as it is for women. But mostly it's fashioned by it's all like linen pants and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wear linen pants and then sandals made of rope.
Made of rope?
I have rope sandals.
That sounds kind of chafy.
No, you'd think so, but it's very smooth. It's not rough rope at all. And so that's my main wear. But in this yoga place I buy, they came out with a Bigfoot shirt. It was a yoga shirt and it had a silhouette of Bigfoot on it, and underneath it said sighting.
Nice.
Sighting. And that's when I was like, oh, we're approaching the peak of this wave because now the yoga people have Bigfoot shirts. And the other one was a gift to me. It says Bigfoot on it. It says World Hide and Seek Champion.
Well, you're about to have another Bigfoot shirt.
I know, and so that's good. And I would hazard a guess that our average listener has not one Bigfoot-related garment at this time.
Well, they better change that because I spent all my kids' homeschool tuition money on making these t-shirts.
Right. They don't have even one Bigfoot garment, and yet they call themselves sophisticated.
Yeah.
So what we do here, the way that they say you make money online is you solve problems, and we're solving the problem of people who don't have Bigfoot shirts. So there you go. We're also on the website, before we descend into the tunnels of darkness that we're going to go down today. you had a very good idea to put up an agriculture section of the website.
Indeed. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm already getting submissions. I'm going to kind of put them out.
Oh, nice.
Maybe one a week. But yeah, we have an agriculture section. And what we're trying to do here is promote a culture of sort of self-sufficiency and connectedness to the created order. And I thought it would be fun if listeners could send in photos and descriptions of their garden, their animals. Maybe you built something for yourself. Maybe you just, started milking your cat. It doesn't have to be big, but just send it in. Tell us what you're doing to separate yourself from the technocratic New World Order and become a little bit more self-sufficient. We'll share your story and your photos on the website, and everybody can enjoy them. And if you'd like to submit photos, you can email me at smkstck@protonmail.ch.
That's like smokestack with all the vowels removed, like you're a Hebrew word.
Yes, that is the Hebrew version of smokestack at
Proton Mail. And in the
Mail.
future, archaeologists will debate on how you actually pronounced your name.
Yep.
Because they won't have the vowels. And they'll call you like Smivstuk or something like that.
They'll get it wrong, but it's okay.
But it's okay. It still counts. See, the purpose, I think that we're all in agreement that we would like the maps to grow beyond just us.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a large world.
Yeah.
A world of interconnected people who are making themselves uncancelable.
There you go.
That's what we're going for. We want people to be uncancelable.
And if you're producing your own food, that's one great way to make yourself uncancelable.
Great way.
Yep.
Because this is why people, they get stuck taking these marks of the beast,
mm-hmm.
which is the vaccine, but not only the vaccine.
Right.
But like your social security number is a mark of the beast too.
Yeah. Here's the thing. There's a layer. Let's talk about Book of Revelation for like 30 seconds here.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Go.
It's not just one thing. It's
Correct.
a lot of things, and it describes the experience of the Christian life at multiple levels. And one of those levels is when Babylonian culture is trying to press you into submission to do what they do, and make it hard for you to not do what they do. That's a mark of the beast. It's like a little tiny version of it's also the coming of the eschaton and the return of Christ. And so, there's the big version, but then there's the little ones. There's the little things that we all have to face. And in that way, the vaccine is a mark of the beast.
Correct.
End of talk about Revelation.
And so they, and what you realize is people think like, oh, if I don't have the marks of the beast, I can't have things. But really, you just can't have them through Babylon.
Yeah.
This is where we sound like we are Rastafarian people.
I'm cool with that.
Babylon.
Yeah.
You can, because like say Publix, and I haven't really had any problems with Publix, but I'm just using them as an example. They don't own your ability to experience eggs or meat.
Mm-hmm.
They just provide it through an avenue, and the powers that be can close that avenue to you to some degree. But you can, just like with travel, people are still worried about like vaccine passports and stuff. It's like they can close off the avenue of you using Delta,
mm-hmm.
but they can't close off the world. Like you can get there other ways.
Yep.
Right. So that's what you gotta keep in mind. You become uncancelable, and you do this all through having a community of like-minded people, in part, and also through just various ways of doing it your selfishness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we may not all like meet each other and live on a farm nearby, but
or we may.
But we may. But one thing we can do is at least give each other a little example and encouragement. So if you want to go on to mapsoc.org and see my flock of chickens rapidly increasing in girth. You can go there and see that and make your own contributions.
Yeah. Now, as you said, my rabbits are still largely astral.
They are.
They don't exist in the physical plane yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in Plato's realm of the forms.
Sure.
And in part, I want to keep them there because they are perfect there. They don't have any defect.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually they will descend into material reality also.
Yeah. Part of the reason I added this section of the website is to guilt Sumo into getting his rabbits.
And if it goes on too long, maybe I'll just take random pictures of rabbits and upload them as though I'm keeping them. Counterfeit it.
I mean, I suppose you could do that.
See. And then one more thing before we this is our listener Keys parentheses Michael, who's a friend of show. He agreed with me that Devin Stack from the YouTube thing Blackpilled may in fact be a Fed.
I don't even know who that is. I was going to ask you.
Oh, he runs a very big YouTube channel. He has a big Twitter where they it's called Blackpilled, and he just every episode is like an hour long. He makes these long videos. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like movie analysis or something, and it's all just like the world is bad, everything hates you, it's trying to kill you, blah blah blah. It's all what the name implies. It's black-pilled, depressed, right? Mm-hmm. He has a lot of people that he draws in with that. And so you listen to it, and when he first started, it was like, okay, is this guy, he's taking the fall of civilization poorly. Fair enough, and he has nice video editing. But then he started to get a little more, he never outright encourages violence, but he like he has a book called Day of the Rope. It's a fiction novel.
It's maybe a little on the nose. Fiction novel, and it's about like a white guy becoming a terrorist, I think. Which don't do. But see, and now, as Keys was telling me, I haven't listened to him in a long time, Blackpilled, but Keys said that in some of his videos, he has like a movie project going on of the book. Like he wants to do some experimental film of the book. Turn his book, Day of the Rope, into an experimental film. Okay.
And he is asking people to like, it's sort of weird. Neither Keys or I quite understand it, but it's like where you make clips of scenes from the book or something and send them in.
Oh no.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. It's a trap.
That seems like Devin Stagg is a honeypot.
Yeah. Trying
to draw people in. He's the guy that goes to a mosque and tries to convince Muslims to put on, like, hey, we're not going to blow up a building or anything, but you sure would look ace in this vest. Just put that on. Woo, you look good. Let's see if we can stuff it with stuff. Oh, you look good. And the guy's like, well, really? I look good. And, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's what we need is we need video of a bunch of 20-something gullible white people pretending to perform acts of terrorism and then sending the footage into probably a Fed.
Devin Stack is either... The thing is, he's not dumb. He's eloquent. You can tell he's not dumb. So he's got to know this is a bad idea, and is nonetheless encouraging you to do it. So don't be very wary of him. And thank you to Keys for pointing out that bit of information. I was not aware of that. Let me see. Has Devin Stack blocked me? Bet he has.
You did call him a Fed on Twitter.
I did. I said, be careful. No, he hasn't. I don't think he did. Like every one of his posts is like just subtle agitation at black people. Like, or something like that. Like, black people hate you or they're going to come kill you or something. It's like, that's not true. Just relax,
He is kind of like a race grievance hustler.
He's a race grievance hustler.
I read like 5 of his tweets and I was like, man, is this guy getting paid?
Exactly. So just look, you got 3 action items today. We always provide our listeners with action items. 1 is you need clothing. You need a shirt. 2 is you need to upload your personal ways that you're becoming uncancelable to the agricultural section of the website.
Just make sure that none of them look like terrorism.
Right. And 3, you need to avoid Devin Stack and anyone asking you to videotape yourself doing fictional acts of terrorism.
There you go.
Or whatever.
That's good.
So,
that's news you can use right there. That's good stuff.
News you can use. And spread the word about Devin to be wary of him.
Yeah.
So, today, the inspiration for today's show was a little music video. I hope you haven't seen it. Maybe you have. It's a video, last I checked, that had 61 million views of a, quote, rapper, unquote. And I put those quotes because even by modern rapper standards, which are not high, he's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the golden age of rap was what?
Like the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean,
yeah.
It's all been downhill since that one that was like, and you go over to your friend's house to eat, and the chicken, it tastes like wood. Remember that one?
Sorta.
I forget the name of it, but that was the peak of rap. I don't remember what that one was, but it's been downhill since then. It's just gotten progressively worse. And people have said to me, you just don't like rap because it's by mostly black people. And I say, no. Because if there is a genre of music, if of all the genres of music, which are heavily done by black people, I am clearly on the Rasta side.
Mm-hmm.
The reggae side
is
where my allegiances lie. It's just that rap has gotten noticeably worse. It's just more focused on shock value and like violence and using. It's like, I don't know. But anyway, there's this new rapper by the name of, quote, Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X, whose real name is Montero Hill. He's a young black man, 21 years old, open homosexual. And he has, in the past, specifically suggested that his primary audience is younger kids, teens, preteens, right?
Yeah, there's videos of him performing for, school groups and stuff.
Yeah, and like on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, he's definitely marketing to kids.
Yeah. And he's also has these accolades. He was the first openly LGBTQ black artist to win an award from the Country Music Association. So,
yeah, a rapper that does country music.
He won it in a combination for a performance he did with Billy Ray Cyrus.
That guy's still doing stuff?
Yeah, he's still, all he can do to remain relevant is jump in with Lil Nas X.
Okay.
And then they'll rap and it goes, don't break my heart, my achy breaky heart. And then there's that word, or however they did. Billy Ray, of course, also maybe perhaps father of the maybe, could it be Satanist Miley Cyrus?
Could it be Satan?
Exactly. Thank you, church lady. Are you familiar with the video that Lil Nas X put out?
No. I just know about the shoes with the blood in them.
Oh, well, then you're missing half the story.
Oh, okay.
So, because the shoes the video was a marketing for the shoes.
I see. Is
anyway,
this where he's giving Satan a lap dance? Is that the thing?
Yeah, he's.
Okay, explain this to the audience.
It's a music video where he's like painted himself semi-red as though he's a demon. And he's wearing some weird sex outfit. And the video is him just literally grinding on Satan. Like there's a guy dressed as Satan, painted red with horns, and Lil Nas X is just giving Satan a lap dance.
That's what Babylonian culture considers children's entertainment now, apparently.
Correct. And then, and so not to be outdone by the Mystical American Patriot Society in the merch department, he looked at what we had and he said, they've got killer merch.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I'm going to partner with a New York, quote, art collective, unquote.
I think that's just a coven. I think that's what that is.
Right. Anytime you read the phrase New York-based art collective, odds are it's funded by the CIA. It just is. It's because it's some form of money laundering or something.
I mean, that's been true since the Cold War, really.
Yeah. A New York-based art collective, watch out for that. Anyway, this art collective, again, the synchronicities pile up, is MSCHF. Mischief without the vowels. Much like your name. And this art collective, quote unquote, has, for this video only, manufactured exactly 666 pairs of Satan shoes that you can purchase. Or you could purchase. Currently a judge has halted their sale. That's what they're called, Satan shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Which are like these stupid, not even really interesting looking, which is true of all things satanic. They're derivative and dull. They're just all pure shock value.
Yeah.
But they're these black shoes that have pentagrams on them and stuff, and they have one drop of human blood in the sole of each shoe. Drop of blood in the sole. See? Apparently. These are Nike shoes. But in fairness to woke capital, a lot of people have been wrongly attacking Nike over this. But apparently, Nike had no involvement at all. It was just this company, Mischief, bought a specific type of Nike shoe, 666 of them, and then modified them.
That's a big thing, right? Is aftermarket shoe modification and resale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aftermarket. And so Nike didn't want to be associated with gay sex child Satanism yet. That's maybe later. And so they sued Little Nas X and Mischief, and a judge has currently halted the sale of these shoes. For how long, I don't know. But this was something, obviously, that never let people tell you you can't sell your soul. Because you can, for fame and money. Look, Judas did it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of the things. And so this is a form of... So anyway, okay. What's interesting is how many people... What piqued my interest, how many people online rushed to defend Nas X and this behavior. Like, they rushed to defend him as though, from their point of view, objecting to a children's artist, again, quote-unquote artist, literally grinding on Satan and selling tennis shoes with human blood in them is somehow an attack on this person's sexuality. Like, well, you're just against it because he's gay. And then if you say no, it's because they're selling like human blood shoes. They say, that's just because he's black. You're like, well, no, not really. It's more the Satanism.
Well, it's interesting that they're the party conflating Satanism and homosexuality, and we're not. It's like, no, we're just got a problem with the Satanism at this juncture.
Right. Like, we can address the second part later.
Yeah.
The first, the primary thing jumping out at us here is the Satanism.
And maybe the marketing to children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's literally it's the only paradigm, it's the only lens through which these people can see the world. Every single social, personal, economic, political issue they ever encounter is filtered through the lens of like, oh, people are just, X is saying that about Y because Y is gay, or Y is black, or Y is a woman, or Y. That's all they ever can see.
Mm-hmm.
They can't see because they are dead inside.
Yeah.
Their souls are dead. They react to things like automatons, NPCs, because they are. They're soulless. They're the walking dead, and they can do nothing apart from the script. It's sad, but it's true. And you just have to know that those people, outside of a miracle, are just gone. They're just too far gone. So here's a sampling of some of the defense of Nas X. It's a quote from a guy who called himself Cliff Jerrison, whose handle is @pervocracy. So
This is off to a great start.
pervocracy. And this comment had 239,000 likes. So not a minority opinion, let's pretend. He says, quote from pervocracy, or Cliff. Little Nas X is really exposing how many Christians think of Satan not in spiritual terms as a force of temptation and punishment for earthly wrongdoing, but in Diablo 2 terms as a second god who has magic powers and will take over as the main god if he gathers enough worship points, end quote.
What?
Exactly. And this is, again, I understand because I am of that era. But people that are our age and younger view the entire world as though it's a video game. All like in this own reference, there's Diablo 2, which is a video game,
Mm-hmm.
and then worship points, which is a thing you could get in various video games, notably, what was it? There was some game where you were like, it was like Civilization or like Civ City, SimCity, but instead of being, they made it very explicit that you looking over the city were like a god, like a Bronze Age or classical or Stone Age god.
Okay.
And the people in the city had to worship you and give you worship points in order for you to have more power. And so you could either be evil and get them to worship you through coercion and force, or good and get them to. Anyway, and you would battle rival gods with their civilizations. And if you lost all your worship points, you went away. And there's been several video games with that theme. And so already people are conflating the real world with the gamified world. It's like that video me and you watched of our friend who believed there were auto spawn points for like chestnuts or something.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It's people are getting weird.
Yeah.
But so, not to be outdone by pervocracy, the Jesuits chimed in. And this is where you have the meme of the days without Jesuit tricks, and it's always zero. Father Robert Balliser, who's a Jesuit, also a tech podcaster, like about iPhones and
There's a great combo.
apps, and also has the morphology of someone who would say this, said, quote, to some Christians in moral outrage over Little Nas X, you've spent years, bullet point, demeaning those with a sexual orientation, bullet point, supporting leaders who incited hate against people similar to him, bullet point, demeaning those who looked like him, ... ellipsis, why did you believe he would respect your faith, ? End quote. Again, Mr. Ballister.
This is our fault.
This is your fault. Right. He can't see anything in this issue besides this person being black and gay. That's the things he brings up. He doesn't like the Satan. He's a priest, allegedly. I think he actually has been ordained, but and the Satanism that just flies right over his head. He's like, well, Satanism.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Children.
But human blood. What? No, look.
We're obviously upset about the gay.
He's black.
Yeah.
That's all I see is that he's a black person. Just the what? Human blood. What are you talking about? Pentagrams. So anyway.
Yeah, if Miley Cyrus had done this, we'd be fine with it.
Right, exactly. If he was white, it'd be fine with it. We'd be fine with it. You would be fine with the blood and the Satanism if it was Miley Cyrus. But anyway, Ballister is also a land whale. And I think if you listen to that quote carefully again, you can hear his own, the bodily morphology of people speaks to their words. Like, let's listen to it again. So, quote, to some Christians in moral outrage over Little Nas X, you spent years demeaning those with a sexual orientation. appointing leaders who incited hatred against people similar to him, demeaning those who look like him. Can you hear the whale sounds?
Yeah.
You can sort of hear it if you listen closely.
And some wheezing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was trying to cover my mouth in a weird way to make the whale sound like a little echo chamber, and I was just sort of smothering myself. Well, I don't have good whale noises.
Well, it's just a whale that's
it's
also
hard.
obese. You know.
It's hard. My whale sounds always sound like a coyote yelping.
Nobody's perfect.
I know. I can't. I'm not good at animal noises.
You got to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
We've already forgiven you.
Thank you. Well, it's like that poem, be blessed, you shall be blameless yet, for God forgives and man forgets.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think these hot takes from the Jesuits and the pervocracy, and the general sentiment around it all was that to most people, even a lot of people who claim Christianity, don't believe Satan is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that thing by pervocracy. Like, they think he's a real being instead of just a
symbol or
spiritual
something.
force. Like, even if he was a spiritual force for temptation and wrongdoing, then it would still be weird to lap dance on the
Yeah, like
spiritual
that wouldn't make it
embodiment
okay.
Like, why would that be okay?
Yeah.
If he's a metaphor for all earthly wrongdoing, then having sex with all earthly wrongdoing seems weird. I don't want to have sex with wrongdoing.
Me neither. No.
But and then they just go black. He's black.
Yep.
He's gay. More than that, these people don't really believe that evil is real, which, as we see, is precisely what one must believe in order to practice Satanism. That's how you come to practice Satanism. So there's a divide in this country because, as we will see, there's another large segment of America that really, really does believe in evil and Satan. And what we're going to talk about today is a little thing you may have heard of, known as the Satanic Panic.
Dun dun dun.
Dun! Do you remember the Satanic Panic?
This was like the 90s, right? So
It
I
was
was
the
a kid.
80s through the early 90s, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have like weird childlike memories of hearing about, kids disappearing and cults in the woods and stuff going on in the Pacific Northwest. It's all sort of foggy. And it kind of like happened and then disappeared. That was the weird part about it. It's like it just whoosh was gone, and then everybody henceforth never spoke of it again.
Well, my theory is that it was gaining too much steam, and so the powers that be successfully redirected that energy toward hatred of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, right.
Which is what it turned into.
Yep.
Like, what it turned into was like, well, what the real problem here is the media and things that may be teaching kids about magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, anything that would have, like I remember, like, Merlin from the Disney Sword in the Stone version was suddenly problematic.
Really?
And then, like, and like the kids that do the Dungeons and Dragons, that's the entry road into Satanism.
Gotcha.
Right. And then heavy metal, which they may have a point about heavy metal, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because heavy metal, there's a lot of heavy metal that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's a segment of heavy metal that's, and I don't like talking about heavy metal, because every time you do with anyone that knows anything about heavy metal, it becomes this thing of infinitely fractionating the genre of heavy metal.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, that's not in heavy metal. That's just German Sizzlekraut power metal. Like, oh. It's like, outside of German Sizzlekraut power metal, that's not a thing. You're like, okay, well, whatever. But anyway, so the Satanic Panic was a period that lasted from the 80s, really like 1980 on the dot, through the early 90s. And some today claim even through today, with some sociologists pegging the Q movement with a modern resurgence of the Satanic Panic, which one could understand, I suppose. And it really began with this book called Michelle Remembers, published in 1980, which was supposedly a true account of one Canadian woman's struggle with a satanic cult. Now, since, and frankly, almost immediately after publication, the book was criticized for having uncorroborated stories and events and things in it that were maybe physically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And the main source of the criticism of the book, which I think is valid, is that the narrative in the book comes from, so the author is this psychiatrist named Lawrence Pazder,
Mm-hmm.
P-A-Z-D-E-R. And it is a account of the therapy sessions of his patient, Michelle Smith, which I don't think is her actual name. I think he gave her a pseudonym to protect confidentiality. So he was treating her. She came to him struggling from depression from having had a miscarriage. And during the therapy, Michelle confided in him that she said, I feel I have something very important to tell you, but I can't remember what it is. So soon thereafter, they had another session wherein Michelle supposedly broke down and screamed nonstop for 25 minutes and eventually started speaking in the voice of a 5-year-old.
Whoa.
Right. Exactly. So according to Pazder, he then spent the next 14 months and 600 therapy hours, quote, and here's the problem, recovering memories of her trauma using, quote, hypnosis. As we've talked about in relation to alien abduction phenomena and stuff, hypnosis and recovering memories is a very questionable tool because in some cases it appears that it may help people remember things that they've suppressed or are long forgotten. And in some cases it seems like it just gets the person in a state of mind where they just imaginatively come up with something and then believe it.
Yeah.
Like they can just, it's like a dream. It's like a super real dream that you then believed really happened. And it's impossible to tease those two things out. So this is a valid criticism of this book, is that it was recovered through hypnotic memory recovery, which is like, that's what when someone brings up hypnotic memory recovery, you go, meh, you just do that. You wave your hand at them because it could be real, but it could also just be a total fabrication. And the person who came up with it in hypnosis would have no way of knowing the difference. But anyway, her recovered memories were that when she was 5, which is supposedly why she reverted to the voice of a 5-year-old in the screaming session, in 1954, she was subject to abuse at the hands of a satanic cult that her mother was involved in Victoria, Canada. So that book became a bestseller, and then it spread around the country, and everyone started talking about satanic cults. And like, oh, in this horrible, look what happened to Michelle, which again, may or may not have actually happened in any capacity. Mm-hmm. It's all hypnotic recovery. But nonetheless, good evidence or no, the book was this wave of paranoia. It set off this wave of paranoia across the country that eventually went around the globe, and everyone was suddenly worried about cults and secret cults and child abuse and Satanism and so on. And like I said, they latched onto other things at the time that they thought were associated with Satanism, like heavy metal and Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. The Satanic Panic may even be the driving force behind the weird ending of Dallas, the soap opera. Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with Dallas, but I never saw the end of it.
Well, yeah, it was, so Dallas ended in the early 90s at like the crescendo of the Satanic Panic. Mm-hmm. And it was this soap opera about like Texas tycoon oil families.
Yeah.
And it had one of the craziest endings in TV history. I think maybe the craziest. Because there was nothing really in the show, as far as I remember, that had anything like supernatural or paranormal or spiritual in it all. It was just like standard soap opera fare.
Sure.
Someone's cheating on someone else. Someone murders someone to cover it up. They hide the murder. Are they going to jail? That sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Soap opera stuff. But then the last episode, in like the last 3 minutes of the show, So you've had like 11 plus years of just normal soap opera thing, nothing weird, supernatural. Last 3 minutes, you find out the butler is actually Satan. And he's suddenly in a red suit talking to the man from the other side of a mirror, and his eyes begin glowing red as he convinces the main protagonist to kill himself.
What?
And then you hear a gunshot, and the whole thing's just this cliffhanger of like, oh wait, the butler was Satan? And it's like, yeah, the butler's Satan. And you never indicated that at all. But I think they were just capitalizing on the Satanic Panic, and they're like, and it was a big, that's the way to end the show, by the way. It's just to leave the audience baffled and angry. Because they will talk about it, and then it's like the movie, what was it, Remember Me? Did you see that movie?
No.
Well, the whole movie of Remember Me is just like this, it's just about a guy who works in an office building. He's like a normal office job, and he has relationship problems. It's like him and his lady, they're going back and forth. It's sort of like it's not a rom-com, it's a rom-dram,
Sure.
Romantic drama. And the whole time he's just like, and there's no allusions to what it's about. And then the final scene of the movie, the guy like hangs up the phone with the girl, and you think like maybe they've reached some resolution, He's like, oh, I'll see you later. You think, okay, maybe they're back together. Pan out. He hangs up. He's looking out the window of his high-rise office. Pan out. It's New York City. Pan out a little more. Oh, he's in the Twin Towers. Pan out a little more. Oh, there's an airplane.
Oh, no.
End. End of movie. Which I was like, yes! That's such a just middle finger to the viewer. You got them all involved, and there was no evidence at all this was going to be a 9/11 story. Yeah. And then just when you think, oh, they've resolved it, that he's going to fall in love, oh, he's going to die in the Twin Towers. Oh, and then it's over. I can't decide which ending I like better, but those two for me are very close. So anyway, this that was probably what drove Dallas, but so the Satanic Panic started in the 80s with this book, and then it kept getting bigger and bigger until in 1983 it really took off. It took off because of a little place known as the McMartin Preschool.
Oh yes,
McMartin Preschool. So the McMartin Preschool trial was a daycare sexual abuse scandal in the 80s against members of the McMartin family and their employees who operated a preschool in Manhattan Beach, California. Accusations were made in 1983, and the pretrial lasted from 84 to 87. And then the trial lasted from 87 to 1990. So the whole thing took like 7 years. It resulted in no convictions, all charges were dropped, and by case's end, it was the longest and most expensive legal case in American history. And most people never even know about it. Also, very strangely, the people involved, like some of them, like Virginia McMartin, the owner of the preschool, has no Wikipedia page. Bit weird.
Interesting.
Bit suspicious.
You think one of the biggest court cases and scandals in modern American history would at least have a Wikipedia page?
Just like a note, like a, just a bit, I don't know. So anyway, the initial allegations come from a lady named Judy Johnson, also no page, though perhaps more understandable. In 1983, she was a mother who had a child at the preschool. And she reported to the police that she believed her son had been sexually abused there by her estranged husband, Raymond Bucky, who worked at the preschool. So first of all, ladies, if you have an estranged, sketchy husband who's not the father of your child, ex-husband, don't send the child to be alone with him for several hours a day.
That's a good tip.
This is just a tip for the ladies. Don't do that. If you have an estranged, sketchy ex-husband who was the stepfather of your child, or your husband before you had your child, I don't remember how this worked out, with your new husband, don't send your child with your new husband to hang out with your old husband. Just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just don't do that. And all the fairy tales about wicked step-parents are there for a reason. Bitter ex-spouses often take revenge for of their ex out on the stepchildren. Or the other. It's just, they do.
Sad but true.
Sad but true. So he was apparently showing symptoms of some abuse at the home, and so she accused Ray Bucky, her estranged husband, and the school of doing this. And she made more accusations beyond just that, which could be considered, bizarre, right? Like, for instance, that they had sexual encounters with animals at the school, that, quote, Peggy, who was one of the workers, drilled a child under the arms, I think with like an actual drill.
Ooh.
And, quote, that her husband, Raymond, quote, Ray flew in the air. Ta-da. So it gets a bit strange pretty quickly. The people at the preschool were questioned, but not prosecuted for having no evidence. Still, because at this point, all the police have is this woman saying there's been sexual abuse, and by the way, my ex-husband can fly. And so they're like, And this is the biggest, to make sure, the police sent a form letter to about 200 parents of the students of the school, which this may be textbook how not to handle the situation. I don't know. But they sent out, after these accusations, they sent out this letter, and I will read it for you. September 8th, 1983. They went to 200 parents of the students of the school. Dear parent, the police department is conducting a criminal investigation involving child molestation of Ray Bucky, an employee of Virginia McMartin's preschool. He was arrested September 7th, 1983 by this department. The following procedure is obviously an unpleasant one, but to protect the rights of your children as well as the rights of the accused, this inquiry is necessary for a complete investigation. Records indicate that your child has been or is currently a student at the preschool. We're asking your assistance in this continuing investigation. Please question your child to see if he or she has been a witness to any crime or if he or she has been a victim. Our investigation indicates that the possible criminal acts includes oral sex, fondling of the genitals, buttocks, or chest area, sodomy, and possibly committed under the pretense of, quote, taking a child's temperature. Also, photos may have been taken of the children without their clothing. Any information from your child regarding having ever observed Ray Bucky to leave a classroom alone with a child for any period, or if they've ever observed Ray Bucky tie up a child, is important. Please complete the enclosed form and return it to the department in the enclosed stamped envelope as soon as possible. We will contact you if the circumstances dictate. We also ask you please keep this investigation strictly confidential because of the nature of the charges and the highly emotional effect it could have on our community. Please do not discuss this investigation with anyone outside your immediate family. Do not contact or discuss the information with Raymond Bucky, who is a member of the accused defendant's family or employees connected with the McMartin preschool, end quote. So, as one might imagine, that letter caused a bit of an uproar.
I imagine, yeah.
As one might imagine. Getting that from the police department caused a bit of especially, I like how they say, please don't talk about this with anybody, as if that is going to do anything.
Let's just keep this between us.
As if it isn't going to immediately be broadcast over the whole world.
Yeah.
And it was. Because the parents freaked out, naturally so. Of course they would, and they should have. And they started screaming about it to everybody. They started calling for blood. And it was instantly a thing. And people have since talked about this particular letter to police departments as like, now here's what you may not want to do.
Yeah.
Here's what you may not want to do when you're like, anyway. So again, much like the book, Michelle remembers the criticisms that come up in this case, the case against the McMartins and Ray and other staff, are mainly on the fact that this data ends up coming from therapists interviewing the children. So far as I know, they didn't use hypnosis. But the questions were described as leading or suggestive, and then you pair that with this crazy letter the police sent out that induced this panic. And these young kids are here, preschool age. Their parents are probably in a frenzy at home, asking them all kinds of questions and so on. One could imagine that you could see how the kids might be confused or think they were expected to answer a certain way or go along with what they thought the adults wanted to hear or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes the water is muddied very quickly. We can say that the initial investigations in this case were maybe not done well. Again, the initial claims do not involve Satanism yet. We'll get there. At the start of it, it looks like a standard case into some place that could be like there might be one abuser at this school, or maybe it's like a ring of abusers. But as the investigations go on, the children begin to make statements that are more in line with Judy's weird, bizarre statements at the beginning. These come directly from the children. Again, I don't think they were. The questions are you could say the questions are a little bit leading, but I don't know that they're this leading to where the children would say things like, quote, "We have, quote, seen witches fly." And then you're like, well, that's weird. And then, or that they, quote, traveled in a hot air balloon. Or that they were taken through tunnels beneath the school. The tunnels is a big one. That kept coming. All the kids kept talking about tunnels. Oh, yeah, the tunnels. Yeah, we go down the tunnels. The tunnels. After snack, we go through the tunnel. And the case collapsed ultimately because it largely rested on never finding these tunnels. One child, actually, when shown various photographs by a defense lawyer, identified one of the abusers as actor Chuck Norris, who was never there that we know of. I don't know. So just a lot of bizarre claims being made. There was claims of and then the parents would claim things. There were claims of orgies at car washes and airports, children being flushed down toilets. However that means. They played a game called Naked Movie Star, the kids said, in which they were photographed nude, maybe. It wasn't clear.
Oh, man.
This is last time I made a case for anarchism.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the rebuttal to anarchism, is that Americans cannot rule themselves because they are insane, crazy people who worship Satan as Satan and who try to fly and who flush children down toilets.
It's a powerful argument.
Powerful argument against. I accept the argument. This is all complicated further by the lady that Judy, who initially made the allegations. It comes out in the trial that she had been previously diagnosed with mental illness, specifically paranoid schizophrenia, and she actually died in 1986. Before the preliminary trial even concluded, she was found dead in her home, allegedly from chronic alcoholism. Or maybe someone killed her. I don't know. This is a very strange case.
Yeah.
So just sort of a mess. I mean, there's things like, the flying and the hot air balloon and the tunnels, and I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, and then this letter that has everyone crazy, and then it's just, and then in 2005, so one of the children as an adult, they went so far as to retract the allegations of abuse. They said, quote, "Never did anyone do anything to me. I never saw them do anything to anyone. I said a lot of things as a kid that didn't happen. I lied. Anytime I would give them an answer they didn't like, they would ask again and encourage me to give them the answer they were looking for. I felt uncomfortable and a little ashamed I was being dishonest, but at the same time, being the type of kid I was, whenever my parents wanted me to do, I would do." So, right. Yeah, and the McMartin Preschool was eventually closed and dismantled and torn down. Bit weird why they would go through all that trouble, but and most of the people in the case are now dead, so it's officially a cold case. The preschool was located at 927 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, 90266, which is currently the address of what appears to be a dry cleaning store called Strand Cleaners, which has a little bit of an Art Deco style to it. Very sort of, I don't know, it looks like more like it belongs in Van Nuys rather than Manhattan Beach, but whatever. So the school was bulldozed down, and that's it. everyone was cleared. No charges. America just fussed about Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and then we got over the Satanic Panic and moved on. Yes?
No.
No! No, of course not. Of course there's more to it than this. Why? Well, as again, the case was cold. It was cold. It was so cold. But then, in the year of our Lord, 2019, from the official FBI Twitter account, they tweeted out something, a little bit of some records from the FBI vaults.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what they do is the FBI vaults. So it's this website with all these scanned documents and PDFs of old cases that the FBI will occasionally. I mean, they're all there for you to look up, like things that have been declassified. You can just look at what they're doing or what they've done. And occasionally they will tweet out interesting cases from the past. You know, like stuff on Al Capone in the Prohibition era, or maybe busting Russian spies in the Cold War. Stuff like that. You know, stuff that makes the FBI look good to the public. It's like an FBI PR account. Like, look at all this cool stuff we've done in the past to protect the country. You know? And so the documents it shares are legit. They're real FBI documents. But most or all are totally irrelevant to modern life. They're all cold cases, you know, nothing that you would get into now. Mm-hmm. Except this one. So in 2019, this had a data dump of all the documents that the FBI had concerning a group called the Finders, run by a ringleader who called himself the Game Caller. It's already creepy. So the Finders group is a story unto itself, all very disturbing, very problematic. It was a satanic cult, probably with ties to the CIA, that the FBI mentions specifically in this document.
Indeed.
And we'll go into that. But of concern at the moment is that, and this is a huge document. I think it's like 330 pages or something.
Yeah.
But on pages 48 and 49 of this document, they do not belong. They are a different case. They are not anything. They are, as everything else in the document is related to the Finders case. But pages 48 and 49 are, respectively, on 48, there is a map. And on page 49, there is a summary of preliminary archaeology findings. What is this map a map of? Why, it's a map of the McMartin Preschool.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's like a map of the, with what does it have on it? Outlined locations of underground tunnels, clearly marked.
Yes.
The archaeology findings on the next page are a detailed set of tunnel measurements, like width, depth, height, dimensions, their exact locations under the school, the spots where you would enter them and exit them, and a summary of the various artifacts found within them, including items apparently used for ritualistic purposes, including many animal bones.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit weird. Now, at the time this came out, it was noticed by we in the, what would you call us, the truth community.
Mm-hmm.
Some were calling it a mistake, like this was an accidental data dump, like these were just in there by accident. I don't think that's true. I think this was a white hat somewhere in the FBI throwing a bone to the people. Like,
yeah,
you know,
because it clearly didn't belong in that folder.
Right.
Like,
I think
somebody put that there.
There's a white hat or two in the FBI that are like, they're like sitting there like, listen, the FBI is corrupt. We know it is. We're trying to do what we can. And one of the little things I can do is just put some of the evidence here in this other thing that I'm not supposed to. And here you go. You know. Like here's a document that proves that 100% the tunnels did exist. You know. Yeah.
Well, when I remember reading that and losing my mind when I saw that, and it appeared to me that at some point, and because this document's in there with no context, it's completely out of place.
Yeah.
But the way it read, it sounded like the FBI hired some sort of archaeology consultant to go in and examine the site, and then his report was then turned into the FBI, and this was from his report. That's what it
Correct.
looked like to me.
That's what it and it does sound, people like archaeology consultants, they exist. They're companies that mostly what they do in America is, if someone wants to build a new building on a place that is suspected of having Indian burial grounds on it, they will hire them to come in and or if they want to find possible graveyards of people for historical purposes or ancestry purposes, like genealogy purposes. Yep, that's what you use an archaeology consulting firm for. So they hire this thing, and this is from that. So here's page 49 from the document, which is from the official FBI government.gov website. You still up. You can go look at it. It's called Title. The quote: "The tunnels found at the McMartin Preschool, a preliminary report. A formal report will be released when forensic tests are concluded. Item 1, and this is a bullet pointed list. Item 1, 45-foot tunnel. 9-foot wide subterranean entrance found under the west wall of the, quote, dog room, classroom 4. Avocado tree roots cut on both sides of the entrance. Disney bag, copyright 1982, found 4.5 feet below classroom floor and 3 to 6 feet in from entrance and under foundation of classroom 4. Tunnel proceeds south, then east 45 feet, classrooms 4 and 3, and north, then east 10 feet within classroom 4. Tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. The footing between classrooms 3 and 4 was arched where the tunnel passed underneath, and 12 inches shorter in depth at this location than at the same footing 12 feet to the north. 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnel under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel under classroom 4. Top of the chamber and tops of sections of tunnel had layers of plywood covered with paper, which had been apparently supported by cinder blocks and 2x2s and 2x4 wooden posts. Tunnel features made it evident the tunnel was hand dug. Next item, 7-foot tunnel extending into the triplex next door. The tunnel extended from bathrooms of the office and classroom 1 to the front yard. Front yard concealed from street by 3-car garage. Children described entrance and exiting tunnel in yard exactly where tunnel exit was found. A 39 by 41 inch area under a hole cut in the neighbor's bathroom floor had been excavated and subsequently filled. Next bullet point, other significant facts. Small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams hand-drawn on top of light green paint was found by archaeologists in the stratified dirt in the play yard. Many other artifacts found, whose analyses will be released upon completion of tests. No doorknobs found on classroom 3, only a deadbolt lock. That's very suspicious. That's my commentary. No doorknobs, just deadbolts. Wouldn't that be a great name for a album? No doorknobs, just deadbolts.
It's a metal album.
Yeah, no doorknobs, just deadbolt. Each classroom had an on and off light switch labeled fire alarm. The system did not connect to the fire station, but was used as an alert within the school. So, they'd flash these things like, hey, someone's here. It's just,
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
More than 2,000 artifacts were found in the school, including over 100 animal bones. Conclusion, quote, due to severe time constraints, our archaeology team was unable to further explore the extent of the tunnel networks, end quote. So, now remember, the case was dismissed because, quote, no evidence of the tunnels could be found and the building was demolished and bulldozed over.
It's almost like the FBI had evidence and then covered it up.
It is almost like that, isn't it?
Could you imagine the FBI doing something like that? In America?
In America. Yeah, I don't, right, so this, it's dark. Anyway, this data dump is, like I said, that's 2 pages of this huge document.
Which there's a ton of crazy stuff in that Finders document.
The Finders is an insane document.
You guys gotta go read. I mean, some of it's really dry and it's like letters between different agents and it's kind of confusing. But if you just take a little time and start picking through it, the picture that emerges is incredible.
It is, it's intense. There's like Fidel Castro's in there. There's like the CIA. There's something about a revolution in China. There's a Panama. There's like Panama citizenship. The Panama National Guard makes an appearance in these documents.
Yep.
It's a wild ride reading the Finder's documents. But so that's the actual McMartin thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what is around it? What else is in this Finder's documents that seems like why would they choose the Finder's documents to put these things in? Well, so remember I said that the McMartin things were on 48 and 49. On page 47, we find this document, heading Congress of the United States House of Representatives, January 25, 1993. Subheading, Help End Child Pornography and Exploitation. Co-sponsor the Lewis bill to reestablish the Child Pornography Unit. So the page preceding that is a letter sent by a member of Congress to who is Tom Lewis, actually, is the name of the congressman, to other members of Congress saying, I'm sponsoring a bill. Please co-sponsor the bill with me. We're going to reestablish the Child Pornography Unit of the U.S. Customs Division. They previously took it and put it part of the Smuggling Division or whatever. And he's saying, he lays out here arrests made since this has happened under child pornography have gone down. Therefore, it's obviously not being as effective, so we need to reinstate it. Why is this the document, the what's on the page directly before whoever this person was decided to put this in? Mm-hmm. But, what's on the page afterwards? So that was page 47, then we have 48, 49. What's on page 50? Well, page 50 is it's like Dear Mr. and Mrs. Redacted, and it's about they're talking about the Child Protection Act, and it's the same thing. They're talking more about the smuggling being rolled in with the Smuggling Division. So who are the Finders? The Finders were the thing I said at the beginning where there was those two men in the park with the 6 children. That's how the Finders case starts.
Yep.
So there was this group in the 80s who they had all these kids, and they would. Well, I mean, I don't want to get it because it gets really dark really quickly, but there was obviously sexual abuse going on. They were keeping them in several different warehouses around the country, and there was one particularly in Washington State where the neighbors, when they were questioned, said, "Oh yeah, we've seen gaggles of kids running around obviously unbathed for months, but we never called anybody about it. We did think it was weird though." And people, again, this is why people can't self-govern, because they're retarded. And then they were like, "Oh, and we've seen in the middle of the night, only women live there, and it's only women and children live there in this commune, but occasionally in the middle of the night, this van will pull up with these 2 guys in suits, and they will bring one blonde kid." Yeah. You didn't think that was suspicious?
Yeah.
You didn't think that was a little suspicious? And everyone's never bathed, and there's vans. And, the Finders are probably the origin of the unmarked van.
Yeah.
The creepy unmarked van archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what they were. And it wasn't just this place. They had different warehouses around the country. And then when the warehouses were eventually raided after people left and they ran away, they would find all sorts of weird, there was documents about how to obtain children, including kidnapping, but also getting them from adoption agencies, convincing the parents to give them up, or just one of them was just impregnating the women followers of the cult, which apparently stayed in this warehouse just naked all the time, and they were just used as breeding factories for getting these kids or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's very. So page 44 says. His finder's cult says, quote, a joint investigation by the MPD and FBI led to the identification and interview of the mothers of the 6 children in question, 2 of the fathers, and several key members of the finder's group. And it says, eventually they reveal that, like, well, these people were never identified as their mothers conclusively. They just claimed to be the mothers, and the FBI just let everybody go and sent the kids back home with these people.
Yeah, like it wasn't clear which kids belonged to which female, and it was all very
very, very, very weird. And there's the very last page of this document, which is again 324 pages long. The last page, that heading reads, quote, White Slave Traffic Act, sexual exploitation of children. All right, so there's something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange. There were definitely elements of, like the kids, there were photographs found of the kids with and without clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was like a school yearbook thing. And then they would do the same picture, but without clothes on. And then there was photos of them like in white robes with like a slaughtered goat. Like for real. Like I'm not, and then like there would be pictures of them with men in the white robes and slaughtered goats. And then there were all these connections to China. Like there was, like the 6 kids they found, none of them had real names. One of them called himself Ben Franklin. And five of them could not say anything beyond their names. Like they were unverbal. The older one, the girl, she could speak, and I forget her what she called herself. But she also, strangely, had learned to count to 10 in Chinese rather than English. And she said that the 2 men were their teachers, and and they asked, what do they teach you? And they said, they teach us to play games. And they teach us how to play the games made up by the game caller. Which to me, if you're the police, you say, oh, well, we just need to not let these kids go. Because that's but they did let them go.
Yeah, they gave them right back to the cult.
They let them go right back to the cult. And it appears to be, when you read the documents, that they did this because the CIA called them off.
Yeah, yep.
And I don't know how this works. I don't know who is a higher power in the realm of authority. If the CIA is higher than the FBI, I think they're probably like equivalent.
Well, neither one is supposed to answer to the other, according to the law.
Correct.
Yeah, but they do each other favors, you know.
They do each other favors, and they sometimes will infight with each other, like when, they both know they have information about Remember Me happening.
If you want to know how the intelligence agencies operate in regard to each other, just imagine everything you've heard about New York mob scene and the different mob families. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they feud, sometimes they trade favors. Same thing. Same dynamic.
Yeah. Exactly. And so there was in the dirty mattress in the van, there were like all these books about China. There were like all these weird floppy disks with weird data on them. There was a box of like condoms. It was all just gross, creepy. The people should have been hung, but they weren't. And the document specifically said, one person that was interviewed about it, he said, "Listen, the finders started as a CIA disinformation campaign, but it quote went bad."
Yeah.
Quote. What does that mean? That's up for you. I don't know how do you lose control of your disinformation group?
Yeah.
I don't, maybe you do it because, like, again, it's just like, I mean, remember, no one has yet been prosecuted for Jeffrey Epstein. Not one person. Ghislaine Maxwell's still sort of there on the trial. I guess she's being held, but
she's now officially being charged with trafficking a 14-year-old girl for sexual purposes.
Okay, so maybe they'll get one person.
That's new development.
However, remember, Jeffrey Epstein was was convicted of this and got a slap on the wrist and then let back out.
Yep.
And we know that a lot of people that have a lot of money and that a lot of were elected officials went to his island.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them have been, remember, this is what you're dealing with here. Because the CIA and Mossad and the FBI and MI6, one of their main ways of gathering, quote, intelligence is just gathering blackmail. And they will entrap people, just like Devin Stack. They'll say, hey, come over and we'll have some nice girls at this party. And then it turns out, oh, one of those girls you were having sex with, turns out she was 15. And now you're on video having sex with her. And then once they're trapped, they'll say, well, will you go a little bit further if you'll do that? Because see, this is the thing. This is how Satanism works. This is the fundamental deal of Satanism. It's a Nietzschean argument. It is morals and morality exist only for the strong to control the weak. That's the basic premise. They say, look, it's the Ubermensch makes up this moral framework to short circuit and hack the natural instincts of the weak-minded, to take control of their natural instincts for survival in the form of like altruism, guilt, and conformity to the herd. And so if you can harness that moral framework, you can control the people and you get the power and you will get dominion over them. And see, and so morality is not real. There's no such thing as right and wrong. And then the devil whispers, and you get it, don't you? You understand. You know morality isn't real and power is all that matters. So prove it. Prove it and you will have everything you desire. Do the worst thing imaginable to the most innocent people. Prove you don't believe in good and evil. Right? All these kingdoms of the earth I will give to you if you will but fall down and worship me. It's the same offer. Because it's like they will. That's what happens when. That's how these things operate. Because they say like, oh, we got you on video with the 15-year-old. We have blackmail on you. You can stop here. You can just do what we want. But if you want to go a little bit further, I mean, is a 12-year-old really that much different than a 15-year-old? They whisper, and then they, after they get you on film doing that, they say, well, someone a little younger. And all you have to do is just, if you just keep doing it, because they pile the blackmail on higher and higher, and then they give you more and more power. Like, oh yeah, we're going to help you. We're going to fund your campaign. We're going to make you look great on the TV. You're going to be so wealthy and powerful. And that's the deal with, because it's not real. See, it's all about power. Yep. Right and wrong aren't real.
And these famously corrupt politicians and powerful individuals that were associated with Epstein and other cases. You get one thing you have to understand about their behavior is that as they were being corrupted and as they debased themselves further, they were rewarded with more power.
Yes.
It's sort of like gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And the risks and the thrill just get more intense. And then when you succeed in debasing yourself further, you're rewarded with power. And that's how these horror shows develop in politics and in weird kidnapping cults. They all operate under the same basis. Like what you were saying about Nietzschean, ethical theory. It plays out the same way in all these different groups and all these different scandals.
Yeah. It's literally selling your soul.
Yeah.
It's like, we will give you power. All these things I will give to you if you fall down and worship. We'll give you power and money if you commit to the idea that there's no such thing as evil.
Yeah, when somebody remarks that a politician must have sold their soul to the devil, this is what you're talking about, whether you know it or not. It's this kind of stuff.
Right. Now that doesn't mean that he has an ironclad contract. If the person repents, right, they can be forgiven. However, as you go more and more down this hole, facing what you've done,
mm-hmm.
like if you go down this hole for like 10 years of doing more and more debased and evil things, doing probably some of the things the Q people accuse people of doing.
Yeah.
The Q is directionally correct, but but specifically incorrect. Like, its specifics are always all over the map, and but its idea of there's this giant evil cult of Satanism is true. But as you go more, then if you go down the evil cult of Satanism 10 years and you've done all these horrible things, if you then say, oh wait, good and evil does exist, and I've been on the evil side, that's a hard thing to look in the mirror and say. Yeah. So most people don't ever do it.
Yeah.
For instance, Jesse Thorne. Did you see him this week?
No.
Jesse Thorne is a podcaster. He runs the Maximum Fun Network.
Okay.
Prime example of a man who's made this deal, who sold his soul. So this week had Trans Awareness Day or Visibility Day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And his son, he claims is a daughter, and then he spent a whole thread of Twitter posts outlining how he came to realize that his son was actually a girl, and why he's treating him this way, calling her, and gonna put him on hormones soon as he's approaching puberty. And it's this most spurious reasoning you could possibly imagine. It's he really liked dancing with a grass skirt, like the monkey did in the Jungle Book. It's what? You're in it, but see, Jesse knows.
Yeah.
He's one of the things you learn reading this Finders Cult group is that the mothers involved gave their children up willingly.
Yeah.
And there are spiritual laws at play, right? And so a parent has spiritual authority over their child, and they can use that authority to give their child away, just in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jesse has made a deal that he will, because he's not that funny, and he's not that interesting, but his shows are promoted, and he is used as a big face of podcasting in exchange for giving away his child, which is super dark. I told you the show was going to be dark, but he's done that, and now he has to delude himself with these ridiculous things he liked the dancing monkey with the grass skirt in Jungle Book, which isn't even, the grass skirt was something both men and women wore in the tribal communities of the jungle. That doesn't even make sense from as specious as it was.
Yeah.
And so that's how it happens.
And watch him be rewarded with fame and fortune for doing this. He
will be rewarded, but it isn't going to be worth it. I mean, Jesus. No. This is why Jesus says those that harm the little ones, it'd be better for them to have a millstone hung around their neck and thrown into the sea. Because God really, really, really judges this harshly.
Indeed.
It's not. Which is why part of the deal with the Satanism is you have to convince yourself it's not real. It's not anything. It's just power.
Right.
There's no, that's why all these things go together.
The Satanist is just as deceived as anybody else in this arrangement.
Right. Yeah. And so, but I want to take, so the Jesse Thorne thing and the grinding on Satan and this is why I wanted to bring it back to what Satan is and Satanism is, because I think people, a lot of people, like in those tweets, they thought he was just a metaphor, right?
Right.
So you remember you said we would talk about Revelations briefly, and we did. But let's go back for a second and talk about how it refers to Satan as a dragon.
Yeah.
And what does he use? He uses in the war in heaven. The dragon, who's Satan, knocks a third of the stars, the angels, out of the sky with his tail. And that's important because the tail, I'm going to go into Pajot moment here, but the Pajot brothers, who've been knocking it out of the park lately. But the tail is the remainder. It's the excess. It's associated. Well, first of all, it's associated with animality. Humans don't have tails. And so the demon is sinking down to a below human position. Now it has this tail, and the tail is the end. But see, the natural end for the angel or the human would be just having like a butt.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a tail, and so he has this remainder. He has this excess. He has a piece that doesn't fit. And that's the weapon he uses to knock the angels out of heaven and to knock people into hell as well. And what that is he's always pointing to the excess, the pieces that don't fit, and using that to then leverage people's minds into, and so the rest of it is false too. Example. Okay, so look, I know that people have for years said that men and women should only marry each other. But look out into nature. Did you not know that homosexuality occurs sometimes between hamsters? Or between chimpanzees? You're like a chimpanzee in a way, aren't you? What's the difference between you and the chimpanzee? How can it exist in nature and be evil?
Therefore, apostasy.
Right, so like he's always pointing to things that don't fit, things you don't understand. Which is what he does in the connection between the devil, the dragon, and the serpent in the Garden of Eden is not spurious. It's ironclad, because that's the thing that Satan in the garden does too, because it's things you cannot integrate into your body or integrate into your worldview, become the thing that kills you. So Adam and Eve are given the power of naming, right? So you've got heaven, you've got earth. Those are the two poles of reality, heaven and earth. And then man is the mediator between heaven and earth. He's the consciousness that mediates the realm of ideas, like Plato's world of the forms, with the facts of the earth, like the physical facts. And he mediates those two together. And so heaven and earth is the same as like space and time and space. It's a bit weird. This is why I said at the beginning, the definition of space is when heaven and earth agree, and the definition of time is when heaven and earth don't agree. There's Mathieu's Pajot's definition, and I think he's spot on, because that's why when heaven and earth agree fully, you enter a realm of just space. Like that's what eternity is. Time ceases to mean anything. When they don't agree, you have time, because when they don't agree, something has to change to bring it closer to agreement. Does this make any sense?
Sort of.
And when change happens, then time is so a basic example is you're a child and you're growing up and you wear a shirt. At some point, the shirt doesn't fit you as you grow, so there has to be change through time. There's a disjoint between the meaning and the fact, between the heaven and the earth, or what the thing is supposed to do and what it actually does. And so something has to change. And so when things don't fit, they have to change, and they do. The child doesn't fit the world properly as a child, so it has to grow and change, and they do. And this is like heaven and earth trying to come together to meet. And so man, the consciousness of man, has access to the realm of heaven. He can understand ideas and meaning, and then he associates them with the facts of the earth. This is what's implied in the naming of the animals, right? It's like in the naming of the world. What is the temptation that Satan says is like, eat the one thing that you don't know how to name, you got to go with that. You see, the good and the evil. Now, you're not going to be able to explain why things are good and things are evil. Now, I know that. You don't know that. But you go ahead and you try to name that. You try to take that into you as well. And then all of the problems of like, well, why is this exactly evil and that isn't? And why is this evil and that's not? And then once you do that, he starts saying, oh yeah, and what about why would it be bad to kill Why would it be bad to do? And so all these exceptions. This is why the attack right now is always on the margins. It always comes to the like. What about the people left out of society that haven't been doing? Like, what about the transgender people? I know there's only 10 of them, but let's all focus on them.
Yeah.
They don't fit your gender categories. How explain your gender categories in light of them? And people can't because they don't. And then he goes, okay, yeah, but explain your societal categories in light of the fact that there have been oppressed people, right? And so just as he uses the trans issue to discredit the entirety of the idea of gender, he uses the margins of society to discredit the whole idea of the society. And he uses the margins of religious practices to discredit the whole of the... And so he's always pointing at the margins and saying, it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, right? And then that's bringing it down. And that's why the temptation is, see, look at all these things. Morality's not real. You know that. It's just about power. See, and that's the temptation he's always offering. He's always, and it's a powerful argument. I mean, it deceived a bunch of angels. It's a real problem that people have. It's like, because people are always like, well, here's the morality, and then people they go, well, what about X, which appears to be an exception? You know, it's like thou shalt not kill. Okay, but what about capital punishment?
Right.
Or, you know, that like thou shalt not commit adultery. He goes, well, what about Solomon? He's the wisest man. He had like thousands of wives. You know, so there's all these everything that you know you're not supposed to do, that your conscience knows. There's always pointing to like the exception, and there are exceptions in a way. Like there are things that don't like Christ says. He says like, look, some people are born eunuchs, which is probably a reference to hermaphrodites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and let him who can accept this accept it. Like there are outliers. There are things that don't fit in the system that the human consciousness isn't able to integrate.
And the wisdom of a society can be very accurately judged by how they are swayed by these like whataboutism sort of exception-based arguments. Like if somebody can say, oh, well, what about this weird thing? That doesn't fit. And then you say, oh, guess I better throw out my entire like worldview and moral structure. And, you know, if that's effective in your society, then your society is morally and rationally ill.
It is. And it's a form of totalitizing because you want to account for everything.
Yeah.
Which is related to the 666 symbol, but also it's like that's the fundamental. Maybe it comes from a place of hubris. I don't know. It's the same thing as like of being OCD. Really, like if you want to go back to Jordan Peterson for a minute, if you want to clean your room, if you want to get your room 90% clean, you can do that in like an hour. If you want to get it 100% clean, that'll take eternity.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're always worried about increasingly marginal parts of it. Like, oh, what about the little crevice under the drawers? What about behind the thing? What about, did I dust the lampshade? Like, you could always, as you go toward 100%, you can always, it stretches out and becomes harder and harder and harder to account for everything. And that's what they're always trying. It's like, well, it isn't really clean if you didn't do that. It's that sort of mentality that leads a society down these roads. And it's just, you always have to accept that there's a remainder, which is related to why there's 7, because this is why there's 7 days in a week and God rested on the 7th. That's where the remainder, the holy days is the 7th day, because the 7th measurement of the circle is an irrational number. Like it all comes together. Like there's seven and there's 1, 2, 3, and they're all like nice, and then it's like, oh, the 7th one is. It's, I don't know. It go back to numerology.
You lost me on that one, buddy.
I'd have to explain that one with a diagram, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like there's the 7 ancient measurements of how you would measure a circle. It's like boop, 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 and the 7th one has a remainder.
Mm-hmm.
It has a remainder, and then it's like that's where all of these things stack on top of each other, and they make sense. But buy a shirt. Buy a shirt. You need a shirt. Your shirt's going to make you all this. Your shirt's going to protect you from Satanism.
Yeah.
And
when that van rolls up in your hood and you're wearing your map shirt, it will remind you not to get in the van.
Correct. You'll say, someone will say, hey, get in my van. And they'll say, hey, Lanky Elvis, get in the van. And Lanky Elvis, who is prone to jumping into vans with strangers, will look down as he's stepping into the van and say, oh, I'm wearing my shirt. I should know not to get in the van.
Yeah.
And then we'll say, that's another way that we're saving lives.
Indeed.
Is by you buying the shirt and making submissions to the uncancelable lifestyle web page.
Hey, Chad Wolf, send me some pictures of your garden, bro.
Yeah, everyone send pictures. I'm going to work on, what do you call it? Aura photography of my rabbits.
Yeah.
Because they're still in the fifth dimension. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. We're all going to... I have another flying lesson today. Everyone pray for me that I am okay.
Will do.
I'm going to go up in the air. And provided the weather doesn't turn bad, which I don't think it's going to, but there's a small chance.
Have you learned how to land yet?
No, it's only I'm still that's the whole thing is the landing.
Yeah.
When you're in the sky, it's not hard to move the plane around. If you just sort of, you go, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because it's the plane I'm flying in has less. I sit much closer to someone than I would in a car.
Mm-hmm.
Like the space between our two seats is almost non-existent. It's a small area. Yeah. And then you look, you're like, I'm really not in very much up here in the air.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But when you're in the air, it's not that bad. But the landing is the tricky bit. Going again, just like we just talked about, connecting the heaven and earth is the tricky bit. Being in the heaven or being on the earth is fine. Connecting them is the difficult part. You see?
It's a way to tie everything together there.
It all comes together. Buy the shirt or whatever it is.
You need to take some video in your flying lesson.
I tried to last time, but I dropped my phone in the bottom of the plane, and I couldn't reach it without like leaning forward and mashing the stick forward too much and nose diving.
I bet your flying teacher loves that kind of thing.
So I had to wait till we landed to get it back. Because
I don't send you a GoPro or something.
I do need a GoPro. I put it on the plane.
Well, it'd be nice. We could have you narrating your flying experience. We could.
Well, once I get licensed, I'm gonna fly and pick you up, and we're gonna do a podcast in the air.
Oh yeah, man.
You're gonna be freaked out because I don't really know what I'm doing yet.
I've flown on lots of small aircraft in sketchy circumstances.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm used to that sort of thing.
Good.